Welcome to the Foray Music Podcast. I'm Charlie.
I'm Alexandria.
I'm Amy.
On this week's pod, a process for learning new standards, Dolly Parton puts her money where her heart is, the pitfalls of creating in the public sphere, new music, and more.
First off, what's new? What's on your mind, Charlie?
Well, a lot of things. The first thing I thought about this week when we were kind of talking about like this opening segment was I was asked to give my teaching philosophy in one sentence. And I was like very stressed out about it. I took like 4 days to think about it. I thought I had it up for a second. Oh yeah. So I was like thinking about things and like some of I was like, oh, maybe I'll just do one of my sayings. So like one of my sayings is like, there is no plan, only preparation, right? I say that all the time. And then I thought like maybe I should do there's like the Kenny Werner quote that is like, in music nothing is hard, only unfamiliar, like that kind of thing. Like nothing in music is hard, just unfamiliar. So I was like gonna maybe do that. But then I was like, I don't know. Both of those are just kind of like, I don't know if that's really like my teaching philosophy as much as it is just like philosophical, like ideas that I have about my philosophy of like life or something.
Right.
And so I kind of like landed on this thing, which I don't know if it's any good, but I wrote something along the lines of like, developing a unique sound or aesthetic is less about creation and more about discovery. Your music is already somewhere inside of you. So that was kind of like my one. That ended up being like my one sentence kind of thing. And I kind of cheated because it has a hyphen in it. But I was it's kind of interesting to think
that.
It's kind of interesting to like try to take something like really big like that and like put it in like one sentence. Like how do you feel about that? I was just wondering if you
feel
That's stressful.
that's stressful.
Yes. Absolutely. I'm so wordy.
Yeah. Especially as like, I don't know, artists, we tend to like say hippie stuff and we say like so many words and all about the same thing.
I think I could probably narrow down the values though pretty quick. Like I think I could have bullet points. I just think I would struggle to do one sentence.
Yeah.
Like it would just be the most flowery, longest, not flowery, but like jam-packed sentence you've ever seen.
Yeah, like
I think.
a complex sentence.
Yeah.
Like, you
Like
know,
very
use
heavy.
the semicolon.
By which, therefore,
and
and yeah.
yes, or
You brought us there, Charlie. It's not going to land when I explain it. I just think it's funny. Yes, and is such a thing in theater and in music. And I think we should do a skit that's yes or. If anyone would like to participate, let me know.
But when you say a skit, like what we've never done a skit before, but you think like on the podcast we should do a skit or
like in life, the podcast would be a great place for it. Just
like we should just all show up at the same coffee shop and be like, yes or.
yes or. Well, because a lot of times you're supposed to yes and somebody and like whatever, empower their idea and then add to it. But what I was thinking about is like when you make plans with someone and they suggest something and you don't want to be like you're down to do that, but you also have another idea. So you're like, yeah, or. And I just
so
think
like, yeah, no,
it could get really silly.
No. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
You're at Starbucks and like, do you want room? And you're like, yes, or you can just fill up to the top. And then
I think yeah, exactly. I also thought of this because my it's not his original, but my dad used to do that joke where it's like, let's go at 3 or we could go at 3. Have you ever thought about the fact that we could go at 3? You know, pretending
that's
they're
very
different
cute.
ideas.
Well, when I was just talking about this a few minutes ago, you were saying that like what this idea of like doing something in 7 words or less or doing something in one sentence. You said that your dad said something like that about feedback in a lesson or something. What's that?
Yeah, I might be confusing it, but the basic concept is like if the focus is music, then in giving feedback to keep it super succinct. So it's not like going on a rambling journey of like 4 minutes of feedback and then the student's like, what am I supposed to do? But I don't remember, like, it must come from like some, I'll have to ask him where it comes from, but I just have stuck in my brain, try to say it in 7 words or less. Because it's hard, but then I guess what it does is it encourages you to kind of like get it out and move on, and then be like, okay, try again. And then the focus is like music making. I don't know.
Or like maybe someone can't like focus on all the things at once. So if you have all the feedback at once, you're like, eh.
It prevents a dump truck.
But if you have like, okay, this is the core feedback for this moment, then like they can get that core feedback for that moment and then like do it again and then seven sentences, 7 words or less.
It's really hard though.
I will do this in 7 paragraphs or less. I will give you feedback in 7 pages.
Maybe,
no.
Yes, or
I'm so guilty of that, especially like I'll sometimes like try to stop myself from stopping a student if they're like singing a song, and I'll be like, oh my god, I just heard something, and it's like I really need to tell them about this, or like we need to stop and they need to sing that, we need to go fix that part or something. But then sometimes I'll just stop myself and be like, nope, let's like let them get through a whole song, like just one time, just let them get through it. And then by the time they're done with that, I've like thought of like 7 things to say, and then I kind of feel like, oh my god, if I don't say these 7 things, I should go to jail, like, because I'm not telling them everything I think about this. But it's like, yeah, they don't need to hear every kind of thing. Like, what are they supposed to do with all of that? Like all of those thoughts or something. Like there's nothing to do with all of that information.
It's kind of hard though, like
to digest.
But then also I've only probably done I think I have like maybe 2 years of like private teaching that I was doing for a while, and I had trouble, which I think would probably come with just practicing how to say what I was thinking. But I would constantly find myself being like, oh my god, I need to wrap this up, like I'm saying too much and not being clear. Like, but then as a student, I both received like the sort of like what do people call it, like the hose, like fire hose concept. And then like sometimes I would just walk out of lessons and be like, that was amazing, like I just learned so much. And I'm sure it was probably because it was like digestible and I felt like I learned something. But like as a student, you don't think about half of what the teacher is like juggling.
Oh, totally.
Yikes.
I think if 50% of it lands, or like if 50% of it is like somewhat interesting at all or helpful, it's like that was like a huge win. It's kind of like batting. It's like batting 500.
A batting average.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I think sometimes I legitimately think like if my student leaves this lesson with like one thing that was like helpful, like one moment or like one idea or something, it's like that's good. That was like a win, you know. If I didn't like make them sad at all, that's also a win.
Charlie.
Well, you know, there's like the do no harm. There's the do no harm.
Can we cry in lessons? I don't know. What if
Charlie's
he said something,
a really good teacher?
Like even if your delivery was fantastic and I'm not sad, I'm just like, dang. But you didn't hurt my feelings. It's just I felt everything. That's fine, right?
But you're talking about like making people cry.
Making people sad. Yeah, not even cry. Crying is, you know, just like
cathartic. Being
a bummer. If I could just not be a bummer, that'd be great.
That's so funny.
Speaking of being a bummer, so I was listening to do you two know who Jeannie LaVetrie is? Have you heard that name before?
Yes.
I've heard the name, but I have no clue why. Is that
somatic singing, belting?
Oh.
The Daniel was talking about.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, so she's this like really famous voice teacher, and she runs like she has this like method called like somatic voice work, like the Jeannie LaVetrie somatic voice work thing. And so you can get trained on this and be like certain levels. Like I have level 1 training or something out of 3, and like Peter Eldridge has like a level 2 or 3 or something. But most of my teachers from New York like all studied with her. So like Theo Bleckman and Kate McGarry and Peter Eldridge, and like you can go down like Meredith Monk, like a bunch of these people, and like a bunch of Broadway singers and stuff have all studied with her. She's been like a really well known and like important voice teacher, especially in New York, like since like the 80s, like since like the early 80s.
Is she still teaching?
Yeah. So like, yeah, I mean, she's still, I don't know if she's doing a lot of one-on-one lessons anymore, but she still like runs this thing. And
it's like a workshop or something.
Yeah, she has a bunch of workshops, and she does a bunch of free like workshops online and stuff. So definitely stuff like during the pandemic, I like went to everything she did, and I was like sending links out to everybody too. I think I was just kind of like, hey, there's this free thing, blah blah blah, if you're bored or whatever. And I think she's really great, but they just launched they launched a podcast too, and I think they're in like the third episode. But this morning I was listening to the episode with Theo Bleckman, which I highly recommend checking out. It's like very cool. And there was a lot of interesting things there. But one of the things Theo said, when there was a question, like a reader question or something, just kind of like, what advice would you give like young people, or like what advice would you give students? And he was talking a lot about the ego, and he was saying like, your ego is not who you are, and it's not like your music, and you should try to like take that out of the thing that you're doing. And he said that like a lot of his students, he feels like this sense of like their ego is like dominating everything they're doing. Like, like, am I good? Is this good? Like, I don't even, everyone should just go listen to it or whatever. But I was kind of like thinking about that. And I do think that I remember a time like pre-social media, and I do think that I was much, much less worried, especially on this, like, kind of now I feel this almost anxiety, like minute by minute basis of like, what am I making? Like, what are people seeing? Like, what do people think of my thing? It's like, I know that there's people out there that are like listening to my music right now. I wonder if they like it or not. It's like all of that kind of stuff. And I don't really remember thinking about that very much before. I think I was just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I want to do this and I want to do this. And like, I want to make this song, or, whatever that thing is. Like, I think I was like much more, which is kind of going to get to one of my topics, or like one of the topics from the newsletter later. But like, it was just kind of interesting. And this bled into a bunch of other things, like basically like singing music that's like not right, like doesn't work for our instrument or something, like wanting to sing things that are too high or too low, or to wanting to belt when you're maybe not a belter, or to wanting to like do certain kinds of things that maybe aren't really part of your voice. And I think like there's this expectation from a lot of like voice students now, especially, that are kind of like, well, I should just be able to do everything. At one point he said some people treat going to a voice lesson like they're going to the store, and they're just like, okay, I want one of those and I want one of those. Yeah. Like, I want to be able to belt. I want to be able to do runs. I want to be able to like improvise. I want to be able to do like overtone singing. I want to be able to like swing or whatever. It's like all the, whatever that stuff is. And it's like, oh no, that's not how that is at all. Like, you can't just go to someone and be like, I want to learn how to scream healthily. And it's like,
oh God.
Okay, I don't know. Like,
someone did a presentation on that in Vocal Ped. Anyway, let's just moving on.
It's out there, like that stuff's out there. But anyways, that was, and they talked about a bunch of stuff that was, I thought, really interesting. And there's another episode with Kate McGarry, which I haven't listened to either. I haven't listened to yet, but it's cool. They talked a lot about Meredith Monk, and I don't know how much you guys know about Meredith Monk, but
just like the lineage.
Yeah.
Like that she's like the cat.
Yeah.
For some of that stuff.
Yeah. Like contemporary composition and technique and all that kind of stuff. So Jeannie was, I didn't know this, but I learned this in this podcast, but Jeannie was Meredith Monk's teacher like in like 1981. And she has been like since then. And I was kind of like doing the math in my head, and I was like, wait, is that like 40 years basically? Like that's it, like that is crazy.
That is.
Anyways, but yeah, that was a big download. But what do you guys think about this idea about like the ego and the
Were we talking about this?
Yeah, but I've never. Well, so I want to talk about what we were talking about, but I also have never really thought of it in the way that Charlie just put it, which
Yeah.
was that, like, am I good enough?
Yeah.
That just made me look in the mirror. You know, like, because that's also ego.
We were thinking of ego like, oh yeah, I'm great, I'm fantastic, I can do all things, I'm, here I am.
Like leading with that, or with like sort of like an ignorance to context, or like like an entitlement where it's like, well, I'm really good and listen to me type vibe in all facets of the scene.
Yeah.
I think that's that someone has a big ego. I think this is like everyone has like your ego, like your id and your ego and all those kind of like those.
Well, then we were talking, like Alexandria was saying that she was talking to a friend who was saying you don't need any
ego to.
So we were debating that, like whether or not you need any, because depending on what it is. But this person was talking about shedding, right, not performing.
This whole conversation stemmed from like. Did you see the documentary, The Redeem Team, about like the Olympic basketball team?
Yeah.
And how the coach, what's his name, Coach K or something?
Yep.
I didn't see this.
So you have
from Duke.
Yeah, you have LeBron and Kobe Bryant, two of the best, arguably two of the best basketball players in the world, and probably have large egos. How do you have them both on the same team? But he was like, he told the whole team like, bring your ego to the table because that's what makes you who you are, which I think is a interesting way to think about ego. Not something that is like puff out my chest, like, or like the anxiousness, but like a comfortable, like a healthy ego saying like, oh yeah, like this is who I am, and I can do this. I think that's like a healthy ego.
That reminds me of like the psychology, isn't it self-efficacy? Like when you're 5 and you're like, I'm gonna tie my own shoes, or you're like, I'm gonna pick out my own outfit. Like, I don't know what people would say if that could also be deemed ego, but it seems like, you do need enough to like have the confidence to like get in the car and drive, or in singing, get up and sing, and do your thing.
But he was saying that he doesn't think there needs to be any space for ego because, like, for him, success means continuously working on his craft and seeing it like show through. And so he thinks that requires zero ego because, like, it's a continuous like effort of or quest of getting better at a musician and human. Just interesting. I don't know.
But then, still, Charlie's version is different.
Yeah.
This is still like adding a new facet for me.
Yeah, I think like, I think what Theo is talking about here is different. So I actually just pulled this up just to make sure that I'm not completely full of shit. But so it's, the definition, just like the broad definition, is like a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance. But in psychoanalysis, it's the definition of ego is the part of the mind that mediates between the conscious and the unconscious and is responsible for reality testing and a sense of personal identity. So like, I think what Theo is kind of saying is that like that whole thing where you're kind of like, when you're doing something and you're kind of like, are other people going to think this is good? Like, how does this fit in the world? Like that when you're actually like being creative, that like that will either get in the way or like will warp the thing that you make into something that's like maybe less you, or also less kind of like that idea of like being in a flow or something. Like it will get you kind of out of that flow and get you thinking about like, like the Kenny Werner thing is almost kind of like when you play or make music or something, you're kind of almost unconscious. Like you're like perceiving it, like you're like watching it, like you're almost like watching yourself make stuff, but your brain isn't like actively saying like play an A flat, play a B flat. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like you're playing and your consciousness is kind of like observing it as like an audience member. And it's like, oh, that's cool. And I think that's kind of in some ways what Theo is saying a little bit, that like there are these moments that it is good to take the ego out of it, like to just take that out of it. But I don't think that means like a lack of confidence. I think this is kind of like a state, potentially a state like beyond the idea of like having confidence or something. It's like you're already kind of doing it, and you're doing it in this like flow state kind of a thing.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't really matter necessarily if you're like, how you're feeling about yourself or something.
I think I have like gotten to a comfy spot of being able to perform without my brain getting in there. But the confusing part to me is that then right after, say, you perform and there's people listening to you, immediately you get flooded with feedback of like either compliments or like sometimes critique or whatever. So that's like super interesting to me, because I really do think I can remember times of like performance without my brain involved, where I was just really like
in the
creating.
Moment. Yeah.
But then it's like paired almost always in my life right after with something, some type of like information that includes subjective like words, like
that's true,
good, killing, whatever, bad, out of tune.
Stop.
No.
yeah. I don't. What about you?
No, I feel that. I think oh wow, that was a long silence of followed by another one.
I want to know what you think. We'll wait here all day.
No. I think that's going to be like regardless of any performance, like unless the only time where I've experienced like almost no feedback is when I have been in a space where I'm like, I was a side person and it wasn't like my show, and I just kind of like scurry along, afterward. I can like kind of hide, which I like to do that. Which is nice, honestly, because I can like be in my, sometimes it's not nice because I get in my own head of like, oh, that was so bad. But if like you hear other people say, oh yeah, that was good, then you're like, then you can say, oh, maybe you can kind of readjust and not be in that sunken place of like, that was so,
That's still like now I'm thinking like that's still the ego.
Yeah.
But maybe it wasn't present during the creation.
I'm lost now.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Like, yeah, no, I don't know. I like.
Yeah, no, yeah, no.
Yeah, no. No. I think like it's kind of weird for me, honestly. I think when I'm playing, and then when I'm done playing, I usually don't feel that big of a. I don't feel like a huge variance between like, oh, that sucked, or like, oh, that was good. I mean, like if I mess up or something, like that's like I'm like, oh, I messed up. But even that sometimes like won't make me necessarily feel like, oh, that was bad or something, because it's just kind of like, well, whatever. Gone. That was just like, that's part of it or something.
I think that's healthy.
Maybe, but in my brain though, I'm also kind of like, oh, did people hate that or did they like it? But like, if it was just me in the world, like if I was the only human or something, and I was just here and I played, I think I'd be like, okay. Yeah, that's how I play.
Yeah. That's how I feel about being alone writing, or like among friends, where it's not really, nobody's making, it's just about like the spirit or essence of it, rather than maybe whatever it was.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right? I don't know anything.
No one does.
No, I think I'm same as you though, Charlie, where I don't know. Yeah, my brain would just be like, oh, they just heard that. Well, okay.
Dang, I wish I could be like that.
I'm not well, like I'm not saying by the way that like, oh, that it's all super healthy or something, or like in my brain it's like always like a thing. But I'm just saying like it's kind of like, well, if someone else says like, oh, that was good, then I'll be like, yeah, it was good. Cool. Okay, that's great. And if someone said like, yeah, I don't know, that was maybe just not my thing or something, or no one says anything, then I'll be like, oh God, that sucked. But without any of that, like if that never happened, I think in my brain I would think most things were kind of the same-ish. I'd be like, yeah, I don't know, that was kind of fun, or I was feeling kind of sweaty, or like, oh, my voice was feeling nice. I could like sing high and I wasn't stressed about it or something, like,
Yeah.
but other than that, there's not, it's kind
I
of
do
is
a
what
lot
it
of
is.
comparing to my instrument. Like I do a lot of like, ah, that felt like this compared to that, or I notice I notice so many things like the mucus. Like, dang it.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Oh, I that's understandable too. I'm just gonna keep on. Can y'all keep talking? Because I think
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot.
I'm just
Thanks.
imagining like someone walking somewhere, like listening to this on headphones, and then Amy goes, it's like the mucus. Very,
Yikes. Sorry, everyone. I apologize.
it's cool. Let's should we Amy, do you want to share
Sure.
what's new for you this week? Or what you've been thinking about?
I was gonna say I could stew on this for a long time. I think this is like a cool thing to think about. Yeah, I went to the Met actually, to see some art. And we kind of winged it.
Yeah.
We only had an hour there. But I loved it. Everyone was making fun of me because the last art museum I went to was on a college trip to Paris. So everyone was like, oh, you went to Paris? Because I was like, this reminds me of the Louvre, which in hindsight is like annoying, but whatever. I guess my point in saying that was I think these like places that like just elevate art for people to like love I think it's like the most special thing ever. And so cool I just love staring at paintings and reading the history and context, and like also like being able to walk through it. Like it made me wish there was something like that for music, but not visual, like actually just like a space where you can walk through and there's like music everywhere. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense when I say it out loud, but I loved the Met. It was really cool. I bought a sketchbook and I want to go back and draw there.
Yes.
And just like sit. Yeah. It just was a reminder of another thing I can do to kind of like fill my soul.
I think Jason Moran and his wife actually are doing something like that. The musical space in
Really?
in Boston at the ICA, Institute of Contemporary Art. Yeah, I think it's on. If you're in Boston, the November 18th and 19th, I think.
And they have like different.
Yeah, Jason Moran and Alicia Hall. She's like a great opera singer and he's like a great pianist.
That's so cool.
I think they're doing something like that. He's always doing the museum things. He like collaborates with so many artists, like visual artists. And he's like always going to different exhibits and different museums. Like they ask to collaborate with him all the time. Like sometimes he's in there playing piano, like with different groups, or like maybe it's based on a certain painting, or or even the artist like asked him to come and like they like do something together, or like he's a historian too. So I don't know. He knows a lot of that stuff. Anyways, that was a tangent.
No, I love it.
I think there's more space for that in music than we think. We just have to find how to tap into it.
I was just watching the beginning of When Harry Met Sally today, like tonight when I got home, and that there's a famous scene from that movie in the Met. That's like there's too much pepper on my poppycock. That thing was like.
Oh yeah, and he asks her to the movies in that scene.
This is so embarrassing. I don't think I've seen that.
It has a great soundtrack.
I know.
Oh yeah, Living in New York too. That's like a great New York movie. That's like all set in New York. It's so good. It's a good time of year too, because there's like they do like a whole Christmas New Year's thing. So it's like a good time of year to watch that. It's kind of almost like it's like every holiday movie. It's like a fall, Christmas movie, like winter movie. Highly recommend.
I will say that when the lights turned off in the Met and they were kind of like shooing us out, I immediately thought of a movie because I was like, a heist. No, I mean, I shouldn't even like, yikes. People are going to be like, what's she planning? As if. But like, I was just imagining
don't yell fire in a movie theater.
Yes,
don't yell heist in a museum.
No, I know. I was like, what
like,
heist? Wait, I shouldn't be talking about this in the Met. But it was so beautiful.
I can imagine that. You take one, beep, 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 and you're like, if there was a camera there, you're like,
I just want a chance to be like the Scarlett Johansson. Like, even if it's in a movie, I just want to be cast and be that girl who's like floating down from the ceiling on a rope and be like, like, I made it. Oh no. And then you're like running. I don't know. The art was beautiful. Alex, you want to go?
It was so beautiful.
Sorry,
it made you want to have a heist. yeah. Alex, what's up? What are you thinking about this week?
Me and Amy actually both went to a show that our friend was playing in Brooklyn's at Ornithology Jazz Club, and it was fantastic.
Resounding yes.
My goodness. And our friend is Jocelyn Prowlis. He plays trombone, and you rarely see like a trombonist leading like a quartet, and you rarely hear a trombonist play like Jocelyn plays. Insane. And it was just so great to like have that energy, like it wasn't like cutthroat jazz energy. It was just like everyone was there to support one another and like just have a good time and listen to music and listen to good music. Like, when do you see, I don't know, you rarely see like a trombonist acting in that position. So it's so nice to do that, and like it's your friend and you really want them to like succeed, and they just sound killing doing it. So that was amazing. And then stuck around, and like there's like a 6:30, 8:30, and then they have like a 9 to midnight set, and the midnight set turns into a jam. And New York jams are notorious for being so, man, why am I always here again with the friendly jam? The story of the friendly jam. Anyways,
this is book 2.
I'm just like fully, yes, but I'm just fully in support of everything.
It was so nice. Like, no one was vibing anyone. Like, if someone started playing a tune and someone was like, oh, I want to, like, people were so excited to play. No one was vibing anyone. Like, the people who played the 9 to midnight set, they were also like taking a break, but they would come back in on some tunes. And I don't know, it was just good vibes. And that's so rare in the city, I feel like.
In New York?
Yeah, or like at least in this jazz thing, sometimes it's so hard to find places that are inclusive. And this place was so inclusive. Like, I don't know. And if you like you wanted to go up with your friends, you're like, hey guys, let's all go up there.
Sometimes I wonder too if see, I don't like being dark. Sometimes I wonder though if like the college that we went to was particularly vibey at sometimes, not always, but sometimes. But I also am like so new on this scene that I don't know. Because it seems like our experiences so far have been like beautiful.
Yeah. And everyone,
wonderful people, like
they were just like, oh yeah,
genuine
let's
musicians.
Do something. Let's
I
jam.
love that.
Let's like
willingness to be there, or like
my favorite part, there's this killing vocalist, Noah. I don't know her last name, but she's Israeli and she's super cool.
I love
the
this.
Pianist started not playing the tune in the correct tempo, and she stopped him. She said, oh, in the mic, she said, no, that's not the tempo I counted. And she puts her fingers and she goes 1 2 1 2
Go
3.
off.
I was like, I love this woman. Anyways, and then she proceeded to sound so good.
Oh, I wish I'd stayed. I went home like a lame-o.
Gosh. I don't even remember. I forgot this song. I never heard that song before. It's like, it's no one but all right. No, that's not the name of the song. It's no one but you. It's anyways, very good.
Charlie? Do you know?
It's one.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no, yeah, no.
That's my
It's nobody but
friendly
you.
jam session. Maybe it is. It's nobody but you. I think that's the name of it.
Oh. I think my favorite one is yeah, no, yeah, no, by the way.
No.
Yeah, no, no, yeah,
Yeah.
no.
It's no,
that
no,
means
no,
no.
yeah, buddy, but you.
Nobody but you.
Okay, this was really fun. Let's hop into the newsletter.
Oh, I talk again.
Okay. So our newsletter this week was called Imagination Library. It is live now on foraymusic.substack.com. Our first A worth sharing this week was Learning a New Standard, written by Alexandria. Do you want to talk to us about this?
Yes.
Talk to us. I love this.
This post went it didn't go viral, but like I saw so many of our friends posting it and I was like, oh my gosh, yes. So Shy Maestro.
I think it's Maestro. I don't know.
Maestro.
I've met him a few times, so it's been forever. He's
Man.
awesome. He's great.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, he's an amazing pianist. Another Israeli person. Wow. What's going on? I don't know. But he posted his process for learning a new tune on Instagram. Should I read it? Yeah, let's read it.
Yeah.
So there are a few steps. 1, find a version where the singer is not varying the melody too much. Snaps, preferably Nat King Cole or Sinatra if it exists. 2, read about it, where it came from. 3, listen to it 5 times in a row. Try to soak in as much as you can. 4, without your instrument, learn the lyrics by heart and look for your own personal connection with it. Asterisks. Well, I just added the asterisk. There's no asterisk there. 5, recite the lyrics as a story. Yes, no melody yet. 6, learn the exact parenthesis, exclamation mark, close parenthesis, melody. When playing instrumentally, always keep the lyric in mind, another exclamation point. Learn the harmony of the song, analyze it. Sing it with lyrics while playing the harmony on piano or guitar. I don't know what number I'm on. Then transpose it to all 12 keys. Listen to a more modern version and learn the reharms and how the song developed through the years. Then transcribe a solo, analyze it, memorize it. Then leave it alone. Come back to it the next day. Repeat until it becomes second nature to you. And last but not least, play it at a gig.
Heck yeah.
Anyways, I think this process is so great because in school, we're like, oh yeah, you need a chart. Yeah. So you have to learn it from the chart so that you can, do the exact same thing.
Nah.
And it's like.
And by the way, that's a struggle for a lot of people even. Like the amount of times I've had to like pull people's teeth to get them to like write a chart or just like have something written down about the song.
Oh my God. I feel like that's also good to do, but not to sacrifice actually learning it. Cause with this, then the changes, the form, like it rather than sort of like being like, oh, I think it does that maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I like it just covered all the bases. Yeah. Like here we've talked a lot about like especially like Amy like talk about context and like knowing where all of this comes from. I think is amazing and it only adds to your personal connection with it like cuz now you're really going to know the standard. It's not like, oh yeah, I saw it in a book and I learned it on a piece of paper and like did not develop a connection with it. Here you're doing research, you're really getting into the harmony. You're checking out other versions of it. So you're really like building a solid connection with the tune.
I sort of also feel like it validates people's like, how some people are like, I don't really like that. Or like, I don't really want to sing that or play that. I feel like if you do the work and like understand where it comes from, then you are super informed. Then you know if it's for you or not really for you. Yeah. So there's some tunes where I'm like, okay. But I try to at least give them like a fair shot, I would say, where it's like, like really try to understand like, well, what is this? Like, what is this that I'm either loving or not loving?
Yeah. So I think actually Mike Moreno has a cool like little series about, some jazz standards and like, he was giving lectures at different colleges and I forget which one, but I think one of them was like, There Will Never Be Another You. And he like goes through and he goes to the movie or musical that it's from. He like finds kind of sometimes he finds the original, like
That's cool. Like the
lead
original
sheet.
song sheet.
Yeah,
Oh,
of
I love
like the
that.
chords and everything. And he's like, oh, how did he kind of examines the evolution of the tune, which I think is amazing as well. I don't know. That's also something to look into. But I think this process is great. It may not work for everyone. Like some people have a really hard time with it. You know, some people don't want to learn the lyrics, but that's up to them. That was shade. Yikes.
And that's up to you if you don't want to do it. If you don't want to really
yeah,
learn
no.
But I think
yeah, no.
yeah,
No.
no. Yeah, no.
This kind of reminds me, I think it has I think this has some influence from like this Lenny Tristano school where it's like that really is kind of like you take like one song and you are really figuring it out for like a long time. Like in that one though, like I think there's some things, especially towards the end, that I could see someone like subbing out of some of the stuff, like the transcribe a solo thing. Like, what if you wrote a solo, you know, or what if you wrote a counterfact or something? And like, there's other things to kind of like consider that I think could be swapped out of this. Like, I don't think it's like I think there are a lot of great ideas here.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're the only ideas too. Like I think there are other creative things to do, but I think this is cool.
Definitely.
The other thing this makes me think of is like kind of how, I don't know who did this, but someone along the lines in jazz education, I think really fucked up when they said, when they were like, oh, you need to learn like this year, you need to learn 50 songs or something, or like you need to learn 100 songs. And I think like this comes from this time where like, you know, where everyone was gigging every night or something like that. And like, you're going to show up and someone's going to call a standard. You got to be able to play it. And it's like, I don't care if you're a freshman or you're whatever. Like if you're a freshman bass player, you're going to gig every night and like people are going to call weird random tunes and you have to know all the tunes, you know?
Yeah.
And you can't do that. You can't do this if you're going to learn 500 standards or something, you know? So like this is a different thing. And to me, this is more of like what actually the modern job is of being a jazz musician, where it's like, you're going to record, like if you want to be a really great jazz musician and you want to do things like tour and put out albums and like all of that kind of stuff, play festivals, then it's kind of like what's most likely, like for someone like Shy Maestro, it's like you make an album, it's probably mostly original compositions, but there might be a couple standards on there, right? There might be like 2 or 3 standards on your album. Then you go tour and you probably play the same like set list of like maybe 30 songs or something, like chosen from a set list of like 30 songs for like, you know, however, like a couple months or something, right? And then you come and like do other things. And it's like, if you're doing that, then I think like it would make sense to say, you know, to like, oh yeah, I'm going to spend 5 days of my life on one song, like on one standard or something, like practicing it all day long, basically. It's like, yeah, I think that makes sense. And if you want to do that really well, it's kind of like, yeah, this is the way to do that. You can't do this if you're learning 50 songs a semester, or even like if you're a college student and you have to learn 10 songs a semester, even on top of everything else you're doing. And that's just for maybe private lessons. We all know of places where you have to learn 10 songs a semester, right? On top of everything else you're doing for ensembles, etc. This is a lot. This is a kind of a lot to ask, I think. Like, I think you could do this with a couple tunes in a semester, you know, but
no, you're right.
Are there even 10 weeks in a semester, Alexandra? I don't even know.
I also sort of interpreted, I know it says next day, but when I read this, and maybe this is just because of like where all of the context of my life that I'm adding when I'm thinking about like doing this, but this also feels like a long haul where I'm kind of like, okay, like have I done, like I usually do the first one, cool. And then it's like, have I done that one? Oh, not yet. Okay, maybe I'll do that today. Like but that's why I think it's cool that you were saying this is sort of like an idea of that, where it's like you could take it and go left or right or somewhere else or whatever. But this is kind of like a collection of like, have you done this with tunes yet?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm doing like the circle back these days. I'm like, let me revisit this tune. Do I know it?
I mean, how many singers sing things in all 12 keys?
Yeah, fair.
I don't really know anybody that really does that. Like I get that that's like an idea out there. I've never met anybody that's like, I mean, this is not my first question I'm asking them, but like I don't do this. Like I think there are some tunes that I can like play in any key right now just because I know them so well, and I've thought about them more in function or something harmonically than I have in other things. But like I don't. That's not been a thing. And I have a lot of students that like, oh, we're working on some standards or something. They don't memorize the lyrics until like the week before juries or something, or like, before their recital or whatever. And so I'm not saying that all that's right, but I'm saying that like, I wish this was more of the structure of education or something.
Well,
I'm not saying that like, oh, blah, 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 like this is wrong or something. I'm kind of saying like how we're doing it right now in a lot of ways is wrong, I think.
Yeah.
You just made me think of the fact that like now when I'm calling tunes like current day at things, like there's tunes that I know because I don't have to think about the lyrics at all. I'm automatically in an emotional space. I remember how it feels in like the two keys that I like to sing it in. Like, but I don't know that I had that feeling in college. I really don't. I like maybe, by junior year, but because I wasn't doing a ton of like revisiting, I kind of was, but not that much. Like I was always learning so many new things that I sort of would kind of just like leave stuff. And now that I'm kind of like I've circled back so many times by just like the thing being gigging or the thing being practicing or whatever. And it's all on my own thing now that I have like, two new songs I want to learn, but I'm also like, I actually know that song now.
I feel that. I think what actually is like helped me the most is like the last step, which is like playing it at a gig. Because I found whenever I'm practicing a tune and I'm playing piano, I rely on the piano so much, and I'm a little scared to like do a cappella. So maybe I'll do like bass notes or something, but I think I rely too much on having the piano there. So
your brain is somewhere else.
Yeah.
In the piano.
Playing it at a gig and over again, I think that's what you were saying, Charlie, kind of using the process. But I think, getting comfortable with it as much as possible. I think it's just playing it as much as possible. And I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I think this is great though. And like, I do want to kind of like, I don't know. I actually do want to like pick a tune I don't really know and then like just kind of grind through at least a lot of these steps and just kind of feel. I just like when you see a list like this, you just know like, oh, if I did that, I know for sure I'm gonna feel good about that tune by the time I'm done. Like I'll feel confident.
I want to practice.
What prevents academia from utilizing this process? Is it like quality over quantity? It's like that question. Do we want the student to know the tune, or do we want them to kind of know 70 tunes? Or do we want them to know 30 tunes? Which I think is still a lot.
I think
like knowing them, like knowing tunes like he's spelling out here, knowing 30 tunes like that, that's so much.
Well, to me, the top worm in that can is I feel like if you polled, let's just say teachers at a university level, how many of them would even know like what they think the point of everything is? I don't know. Like to me, maybe it's because like it seems that even within communities, like not everybody's on the same page about like what learning is and what the important parts of learning are and whatever. I don't know. What? I hear you though. Let's open a school. I don't know. Oh, another thing.
Foray.
Yes, Foray.
Oh my gosh. Bro.
Foray Conservatory of Music.
I keep bringing up my dad, but the other thing he says is a lot of times people teach the way that they were taught.
That's true. That's why I'm glad I had Charlie.
Boom. Yeah, which honestly, that can be. I said that kind of like tinted negatively, but that can be tinted completely positively as well, which is why I always am obsessed. Charlie's like, relax. That's why every single week on here, I'm always like, mentors. I think mentors are so special because they are.
Yes.
Anyway, what?
I agree. Yeah, I don't even know where to go right now, but I think you're right. I think that people teach the way that they were taught, and I also think like jazz education was kind of like grafted onto like the corpse of classical music education.
Interesting. Yeah, I know.
Not to say that that's dead or anything out there, but like I just think it's like the people who invented jazz education were, this is going to be shocking, but like not necessarily jazz musicians. Like they were kind of like, they were classical musicians mostly that were like interested in jazz or like open. Like, you know, it's like, who are all these people that started all these like vocal jazz programs at all these universities? Were they number one jazz musicians? Not really. Kind of like they're interested in it. Were they singers? No, by and large.
Wow.
And so it's just kind of like, and then, but like those are the programs, you know, and they kind of like, you know, they're out there kind of like propagating these ideas, which are like, who am I to say they're right or wrong? But like, that's kind of where they come from. And yeah, like the idea of juries and all these other kinds of things, and the obsession with the written music versus like an oral sort of tradition or something like that. Like that, you know, that all comes from classical music. That's pretty, or like Western traditional, that kind of thing. Like that all comes from that. And but I think the other thing that happened I think the other piece of this is like this whole gigging thing, which does not come from like the, you know, which does not really come from any of the gigs that at least the three of us that are on this Zoom call, like really even want that much. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go do this gig. I'm going to make $50. I'm going to be playing like a bunch of standards, like for people that aren't really listening or something, you know. It's like, that's in a lot of ways, like this idea of like learning 10 tunes a semester, or, you know, learning 100 tunes. Like for my doctoral qualifying exam, for one of them, I had to have a list of 100 songs, and they and they just like called random songs, you know, and they could be like, what's the chord in bar 4, you know, or like what's name the important recordings of this song, and you know, it's like you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, what's that for though? Like that has I will never do anything like that at all. Like I don't know. I think that's just to like haze me or something. I think that's just a hazing tactic. But but it comes from this thing where it's like, you know, I do think it's true that if you're a gigging bass player or piano player or something, or guitar player, like if you're like a rhythm section player in particular, like I think it is kind of expected that like you're going to show up, someone's going to call like Bye Bye Blackbird in the key of F, and then they're going to call Ornithology, and then they're going to call 500 Miles High, and then they're going to call, you know, whatever that is. Like I think they're just going to call tunes, and like the expectation is like you're going to be like, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, okay, I got that, and like let's do it. You know what I mean? But I don't think those people like know the lyrics to the tunes. I can tell you that a lot of them don't, for sure.
Yeah.
No,
I don't know the lyrics to all those tunes either, though. So I will not throw rocks.
I think I forgot who wrote it. I think it was like Russell Hall or something. He said, like nowadays, like he uses his ears more than anything, because he's like, I don't remember all of those tunes. He even said like, yeah, sometimes I'll pull it up on iReal Pro or whatever, and he'll be like, at least I'll play like somewhat of the right changes, and then like he'll use that as like kind of a skeleton, and then like, oh yeah, now I hear the movement that we're all gonna go. So like they kind of the rhythm section kind of comes to this consensus of like, oh, these are the changes we're gonna use. Boop, 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 boop.
Yeah.
Which I think like, I mean, in that sense, standards kind of have the same movement, but that's just me blanketing and generalizing. But
no, but
you can learn it. You can kind
similarity.
You kind of like can get the basics down on like the bandstand. Like if someone called the theme, like you will be able to recite the melody back after like hearing it for a chorus.
Well, that I like that. I think people are really afraid of that though, too.
Yeah.
People are afraid of like that there's ego again. Is this good enough? Like they don't want to take a shit.
I do think like all of that is cool, and it kind of, again, yeah, it just depends on like the context or something, or like what the job
happening.
is, you know, or
Yeah,
like what
yeah.
you've decided the rules of the game are.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're touring with like an album you've made and stuff, that's pretty different. But even then, if you're playing with people that are like into that kind of thing and you're into that kind of thing, then you are like, yeah, let's do this tune. I kind of know it or whatever. It doesn't really matter that I know it. All that matters is like it's an opportunity for us to like play and listen to each other. I think that's like, I don't know.
Like
think
people
it
talk
takes all
about
kinds.
Wayne, but that was Wayne's big thing. Like he'll be like, "Oh yeah, maybe we'll play Footprints," and then he'll play like the first 3 notes, and then
Right.
he was like, "Oh yeah, that was Footprints. Thank you."
I call that
love that.
Footprints. Yeah.
I always think about that too, though, is like these giants are just like they're artists themselves. And then
Yeah.
I think some people get so caught up in pedestaling them that they're like, how can I be Wayne? And Wayne's like, I'm Wayne. What's up? Maybe, sorry, that might be disrespectful.
I'm Wayne. Hey.
All due respect.
How are you?
You know what I'm saying?
Wayne's like, no, yeah.
And then we're like,
Yeah, I
oh
know.
my God, how did he say it like that?
Well,
but we
there's
lose sight of,
yeah.
I don't know.
There's the thing in like the second grade Miles Davis quintet or whatever, where they have like they play the My Funny Valentine thing, and it's like literally every chorus, like Herbie Hancock and oh my God, who's playing bass on that?
Is it Ron?
It's Ron Carter. Yeah, Ron Carter. So
that
like
was
Herbie
Alex.
and Ron,
That wasn't me. That was Alex.
Okay. So like Herbie and Ron Carter on that are like playing different changes every chorus, like through My Funny Valentine. Like there's like a whole crazy matrix of stuff they're going through, and they're never playing the same chord changes. And it's like, what are the real chord changes then for that song? You know, like what of that am I supposed to memorize? Like there's 40 variations just in this like one recording. And they're all cool or whatever, but that, you know, I think
I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
It's like,
and then like in contrast to that, in this like shy maestro list, right? It's like that actually feels, I don't know, it's kind of complicated. You know what I mean? Like it's like, how do you go so deep into something but like stay open, you know, like not get like overwhelmed with so much information, or just know something so well that you're like, this is what it is.
Well, that's, oh my God,
that's such a major challenge. Wow.
That's in life too, though. Like, I don't know, Alex and I feel like we'll have these like 2-hour conversations about everything, but like as you get older, you get more crystalline intelligence that's harder to like shake. And then I've noticed like the more expert somebody feels in something, the more maybe likely they are to not be open-minded, even if they want to be. But I feel like that's the same thing where it's like maybe a goal that I could see myself wanting to be is like know a lot about things but still be open to what somebody's saying to me and like still assume I might be wrong.
That's okay. So this is this reminds me of like
hard though.
Freshman year English. I had this Professor Ben. That was his name, Professor Ben. And every class he started off with, you must be open to the possibility of being wrong in order for this dialogue to occur. I thought that was such a cool thing.
Yeah, I like that.
So like always keeping that same perspective. Like, yeah, I'm open to the idea of, okay, maybe I'm not right. Maybe this is not the melody. Oh, I never seen the melody.
Maybe this
right
is
on
not
I'll
my
Be Seeing
beautiful
You.
house. Yeah, no. Should we? I think we could we could probably explore this idea until for like 2 parts of a podcast. But let's hop on to our next A, which is Dolly Parton gets $100 million from Jeff Bezos to spend on charity. What's this about, Amy?
Well, I realized when we started recording this, I was like, I don't know a lot about Jeff Bezos. I didn't think he was generous. That's so bad of me, but whatever. Anyways, but so this was great news to me. I was like, cool. Because I always think about how super duper duper rich people, I'm like, they could be doing so many things. And I know many people do. So that's amazing. But this is cool, I think, to you know, award someone like Dolly Parton that much bread. I'm like, that's incredible. Like somebody like Dolly Parton has such an important perspective, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And just has, I assume, like a lot of wisdom. At least just kind of like looking at even just her professional career. So the two things I liked about this were, one, I mean, this was a project that she did separate from this award that she got, but she has a project called the Imagination Library, which is sending its 200 millionth free book to young children in 5 countries. That's like beyond incredible. It's like prioritizing education, encouraging reading, all these things, like elevating the young people. And then this particular award is called the Courage and Civility Award, which I couldn't find a ton of info on necessarily. Like there, to my knowledge, there wasn't like a TED talk on what that was or like a long article, but it seems like recipients of this award that Jeff Bezos gives out get 10 years to disperse the money. And it seems like it's really new. So it started in 2021. Mm-hmm. And then I'll just like read this sentence that is in the newsletter that I think was sort of my point of it all, was that when artists become established, like Parton has, they become public figures who may have a heightened responsibility to do good and make change. Generosity can go a long, long way. I really believe that. Not in terms of the fact that an artist who has a platform, quote unquote, is in charge of sort of like knowing about everything, because that's really hard and they are human as well. But just like the idea of using your platform or using your sort of like spot on this earth for good, if you have the blessing to influence so many people,
I think
in a deep way.
Yeah, there are like 2 ways to go about that. They're like people who give their, I think Dolly is so great because like she come like her background in general and her story and how much she had to, you know, fight to get to where she is. I think that's also a part of like, wow, Bezos, I guess, I don't know if he knew this, but she's like a cultural icon because she's literally like the rags to riches story. And she was a woman in the country music industry, which was like heavily male dominated and heavily, you know, misogynistic. Anyways,
a writer.
Yeah, such a good songwriter. I think that's like another layer.
She's a heavy
to it. And then she's like, I don't know. So I like that. I forgot what I was saying, but I said there are 2 ways. So like giving it, I think like giving it to the right person is like Dolly. I think everyone still relates to her, and like education is always a great topic of giving. But then like are also like artists like LeBron, he was like trying to speak up about, I forgot what he was trying to speak up about, but he then gave his platform to somebody else.
Oh, I saw that.
You know, he was like, he like was like, that was humble of him. He was like, I don't know much about this, but this person does. That. Here's how they do it. So I'm interested to see how like Dolly will like use her platform. Like I'm sure she'll use it in Imagination Library, but like also maybe giving a platform to the students that learn from it, and
that's cool.
You know, all that stuff. So that should be, I would be very interested in seeing how she does that. But I think Dolly's like I'm in love with her. There's also a podcast about Dolly.
I did not know
you
that.
Should check it out, about her life and like the songs she writes.
Dolly.
This kind of reminds me a little bit of like the No Name, what we talked about, No Names, like book club. Like just like finding something that you can, I mean, I think in particular, like once you kind of, especially when you like build an audience, but I think it can be just like part of this too, like I don't think we need to wait until like we're like a Dolly Parton or something to kind of like find these kind of causes. I think they like having something that's important to us and like having that be not just like the like financial beneficiary of it or like or bringing awareness to something, but like, you know, having it be like interwoven, the things we care about in the world, like having that be interwoven into like kind of everything we do in our music and our teaching and all that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But Dolly Parton's she's a great spokesman for pretty much anything.
Yeah.
I think she also recently announced she's retiring.
Huh?
I think Dolly.
I didn't see that.
I don't know about that.
I did see.
I mean, I don't know about her retiring. I didn't mean that I didn't believe you. I meant,
I don't know.
I feel like she'd be the type. No, she'd be the type to come back and be like, just kidding.
Yeah, like everyone else. You mean like all these?
Yeah.
Like this is our farewell tour, our 4th one. Like,
right.
We'll see you next year for our 5th farewell tour.
This is it. We swear.
We promise. You know, unless we are still alive in a year, and then just keep an eye out. Just keep on that Ticketmaster website. Just keep refreshing.
No. Yeah.
No. Yeah, we can't go there. That's like too.
No,
that's too big of a thing. But Jeff Bezos did just recently say that he plans on giving away all of his money at like over the course of his lifetime. Like he plans on. Yeah. Like he.
Why did I think he was such an ogre?
Well, because he kind of is. I think he. I don't know. I think that's the general consent. Like that's the general feeling about Jeff Bezos. Kind of an ogre. That's well put.
Just because he has so much money.
Yeah, but I think like, but I mean, like Bill Gates is problematic too. Like Bill Gates was like everyone thought Bill Gates was a jerk, and then it was like, oh no, Bill Gates is great, and then now he's kind of a jerk again because he does stuff with his wife. But like, but he's giving away all of his money. There are other people kind of in that crew, but Bezos has like recently said he's going to do that. But this is actually a really good can I transition into the next A, because I think this is actually a really good transition. So the 8th, our third A this week was titled Working in Darkness. And this is kind of related along the same line. So this also brings up another billionaire because basically, so it's been a rough time on social media, especially the last like week or two, mostly on Twitter because of Elon Musk like purchase of Twitter going through. So it's been like chaos on Twitter, just like, and I think it's really probably you two aren't on Twitter, right? Like you don't do
literally
Twitter?
Somebody asked me this last night too, and I logged into my Twitter. It's all like, I wish I was, Charlie. But I just am not. I have like 200 followers and posts from high school. Stream my debut, like, oh God.
Mine isn't even that. It's like economics class.
You're like upset about economics class?
Mr.
Yeah.
Case.
I think that could be, it could be a comeback. I don't know if right now is a great time to come back to Twitter if you've not been on that, unless you want to just like watch the slow car crash that's happening. But anyways, so there was a post that I'm going to get to that kind of like that's where this comes from. But the other context of this, so it's like Twitter is like on fire. Others, like a lot of other problematic things are happening in social media. So like Facebook is like losing a ton of money. Like everything is like there's a lot of concerns with TikTok and like the Chinese government. There's all these kind of things, and like a lot of creators, I think, are kind of like, well, what do we do? This has kind of been the center of like most of our artistic lives, at least in the publicizing of our music, or like getting our music out there to like having people like listen to it. So like, what do we do? And there's this like conventional wisdom, I think, kind of in the modern age, this idea of like show your work. There's this book by Austin Kleon. I have it here. I'm just going to reach and grab it.
Yes.
Dead time on the podcast, but there's this book called Show Your Work by Austin Kleon, which we've kind of talked about before. So this is the author of Steal Like an Artist, and he has another book called Keep Going. But this Show Your Work book, it kind of like, it says a lot of different kinds of things, but there's like main bullet points of Show Your Work are, You don't have to be a genius. Think process, not product. Share something small every day. Open up your cabinet of curiosities. Tell good stories. Teach what you know. Don't turn into human spam. Learn to take a punch, sell out, and then stick around. Those are like the 10 chapters of this book.
I love that.
And there's a lot of really cool stuff here, but like the third point of this is share something small every day. And so there's this kind of idea that it's like we should be kind of like to share something every day, even if it's something small, like that's exhausting. Like I've tried that. That's exhausting.
I know.
Even if it's like one photo on Instagram every day.
Yeah, it's hard.
Like I'm like, oh, like that's a lot, especially like if you're trying to have it say anything, not just be like, here's a picture of my feet or something.
Yeah.
But maybe that does say something. I don't know. I'm not throwing shade. But anyway, so in contrast to those ideas, which I think have been kind of at least like my conventional wisdom, like, oh, I should be putting myself out there, not just when it's something I feel like is done, but like in process, I should be putting myself out there and kind of like expressing all that kind of stuff in a public way. There's this writer that I subscribe to on Substack called his name is L.M. Sakakis. I've never said it out loud. This podcast is like a huge thing for me where I've like only read words before, and then now it's like I need to say them out loud. And
that's such a thing.
Yeah.
So L.M. Sakakis, I think is what it is. But he writes this Substack called the Convivial.
I'm the worst. I literally am thinking
Sakasas. So he writes this Substack called the Convivial Society, and the newsletter explores the relationships between technology and society. And so it's like really up my alley. It's like all the nerdy stuff that I like. But he wrote this essay a few days ago called Antivirals, and basically it's on the pitfalls of creating in the public sphere and the benefits of more private working spaces. So he says that by doing just about anything without the expectation that other people will know about it combats, quote, the effects of the attention economy powered by the promise or threat of virality, end quote.
Wow.
It does this by corrupting the quote, influence of social media's reward mechanisms. And then he goes on to quote Hannah Arendt, who says, everything that lives, not just vegetative life alone, emerges from darkness. And however strong its natural tendency to thrust itself into the light, it nevertheless needs the security of darkness to grow at all. And so, yeah, and like in the other things he was talking about in this article were kind of like these like random acts of generosity where like nobody knows about it. Like you don't ever tell anybody that you did it. You just like do a thing where it's like, whether you donate money, you give someone something, you help someone across the street, whatever that is. And like, you just never say anything to anybody about it. And how like, this is actually like this can like fill your cup up or like make you a happier person, not just a better person, but kind of like also a happier person. So he makes a case for what's called a life committed to secret acts of generosity. It is time, he says, to allow ourselves a respite from public light, to rediscover the pleasures that attend practices and deeds done for their own sake. But anyways, there's a lot here that was just like, I was like, oh my God. And like, part of it felt like it was giving me permission a little bit to like just make stuff again. I don't remember when the last time I did that was, but I think it was like when I was in undergrad, where like the last time I like made something that wasn't like for something, that wasn't like, oh, okay, I have to put this on an album, or like I need to share this on social media, or this needs to go into this like book I'm writing, or whatever that is, or this has to be a part of my class. It's been forever that I've just like made something that was just kind of like, oh, I'm just going to make this like silly little thing. What's it for? It's not really for anything. Okay, well, like what's next? Like, I almost never do that anymore. And that was so fun and cool and good for me when I was doing that. And that's when I got better really fast, by the way.
Literally.
I don't know if it's related, but it might be. So anyways, sorry I just gave like a lecture about this, but there was kind of like a lot by the way, his writing is like quite dense because he's like a kind of a philosopher. So it's like, it's not necessarily always like, I read a lot of the stuff he writes and I'm like, that seems really smart. I don't really know what he's talking about. And like, I have to like reread it 3 times, or I just have to be like, well, maybe that's not really for me or something like that. I just not for me. But any ideas about, or anything that this made either of you think of?
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Alex?
I think, yeah, so much of what we do is we do it for like gratification or validation, or even when we were kids, whenever you had to do community service, you would get like a certificate of participation rather than just like,
Yeah.
that, just being able to sit with that feeling of like, yeah, we just fed the homeless or houseless. Sorry, I don't like homeless, houseless. Like that should be the reward in itself. Like you did a good deed for another human and there's nothing, you expect nothing in return. You're like, dang, yeah, we just helped somebody, But no, I have to get the certificate of participation, which I think is like a conditioning thing on our end. But that's just something I thought about. And then also this idea, I've been talking about it with Amy. We talk a
No
lot.
way.
But
We do.
moving in silence. Like you can, like, yeah, you can post the journey. Maybe like I post like 3 notes of maybe a tune I'm writing or whatever. And then yeah, another 3 notes. But then like it turns into like a whole album where like, oh yeah, while I was also writing these 3 notes, I was also touring in Europe with insert artist name that you like to play with. I think that's like a beautiful thing. Like you can, there can be things happening in your life, consistently, but you can like kind of choose which things that you kind of want to share, and like those things that you can move in silence with, those things that you can, I think like this is the idea of like having it in the public light, and then also maybe I'm misunderstanding, but like having stuff that's in the public light but also things that are in darkness, so that you can like really get into the weeds of it and be like, oh yeah, like this is something for just for me to have and for it to do, and I don't have to really share it. I can just move in silence, and then when you hear the album you're like, wow, that's what they were doing, and then it's like this cool little thing.
And that prioritizes the being of it and the doing of it rather than, hey, look what I did.
Yeah.
Because that came up for us when I was just kind of like angsty about like, why is everybody like why won't people stay in their lanes? And man, Alex was like, move in silence, bro. Like, but it's like such good advice for me though, because man, the amount of time that I spend upset by the way other people are acting, it's like if I have such an idea of how I want to be or how I think I am, then why am I not just like amming or being or like do you know what I mean? It's like that's so much more powerful because think of like how much, that's something someone else said to me is like, think about how much energy you can spend on being upset by somebody else being dumb. Like literally, if I think it's dumb, then why am I not just moving in silence? But also I want to kind of just like sit with what you've put in this newsletter though, because I think a lot of times, I'll just speak for myself. I'm like, okay, I moved to New York. What's something I could do? Oh, I could post a TikTok every day. I don't really want to do that. I don't know. I could like, so then I'm thinking like, what would I post? And I'm like thinking about what you're saying, like these small things, but it's also like, I don't think it's a recipe for happiness. I do think it's a lot of why sometimes I'm dark is because it's like not a natural thing to like sit somewhere in a reality and be somewhere else, and your brain thinks it's real but it's not. It's like
Amy posted, not to bring this up, but Amy posted a song on Instagram that's really good that talks about this. Anyways,
oh god,
go back.
thanks.
This is like so anti what we're talking, but also
Well,
pro Amy.
Link in our bio.
LOL. Well, it's bizarre that I posted it, but whatever. I called it fabricated reality because that's really what I think it is. It's like, especially after the realm of social media that was very posed and you didn't know anything. Now, like people who, and I talk about this all the time with TikToks too, where you see people go viral and it goes viral because of how genuine and beautiful, like just pure they are as a human. And then you see them making videos after that, and it's different because they know people are watching them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, so that it's making me think about it because in some ways, as a 22-year-old, I'm like, I need to be on the grind. Like everybody's posting. That's the way I'm going to be successful. Like, is posting a TikTok every day so people like know who I am, and then maybe they'll care about what my art is. But that's always been my struggle. Is I just have always felt like social media isn't the place for art. Like, it doesn't. That something doesn't add up, and it makes me feel yucky to like I don't know. There's something deeper. And then I think getting caught in trying to make social media the big picture and art in the middle of it is like really, really wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. This idea of like kind of what would you do if like you knew no one was like listening or watching or something like that? That's kind of like this darkness thing, you know, like, oh, it was good before you knew everyone was watching you. And then it became like self-conscious, or it became this kind of like plastic thing or something. I think about too how much I will think about that idea, like, oh, I should make a post or something. Like I should make a little video of me playing for like Instagram. And it's like, I'm not actually making my music or something. I'm like making something that like that will like fit in that like box, you know? And like, I don't, that's not what I want to make. And like, that's not what I'm making naturally. And it's like, oh, it's like a lot of work. And I spend that much time and I'm like, that doesn't really look professional. I need to do that again. Or like, that wasn't nice. Or like, I had to make this caption. And then it's like, and then I'm so linked to like how many people liked it or whatever the reaction to it was or something like that. And it's like, and I'm like, well, that's not even, I didn't even want to make that. And you didn't even really like that. And like, oh, that was dumb. Like, why did I do that? You know? And it's kind of like, why wasn't I just making why wasn't I just writing a song I liked? Or why wasn't I just like working on a recording that would actually be the kind of thing I'd want to hear? And it's because I felt, because I don't so much right now. I'm kind of like, I'm in this spot where I don't feel like I want to do that. But it's like, I was feeling a lot of pressure for quite a long time to like do that, you know, to like, well, I have to do that. And then it's like, I look back at that time, and if I just spent that, I would have much rather been doing other things. And if I had spent that time doing other things, I think it would have been better for me now. Like that content or whatever, that creation thing I would have made in that time that wasn't on Instagram or whatever, that would have been better for me, for my career, you know. But it was like, oh, I need to show this video of me playing to my friends that already know how I play and have already kind of like made up their mind about what I sound like, you know. It's like, I don't, you know, it seems kind of so silly to me, but there's like this little tiny possibility. There's like a 1 in a million chance that like Tom York is going to see it and be like, Charlie, you need to come on tour and open up for Radiohead on this whatever. And it's like, okay, maybe I need to maybe Tom York will hear this and
because it's worked really for people.
That's what we were talking about. We talk about so many things.
I know.
But like nowadays it's like, oh yeah, if you're viral on social media, like you're kind of it. It's no longer like, oh, you were brought up through like the school of Blakey, so you were brought on the like Blakey.
Or how do you sound?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, are you verified? Cool. Killing.
It's like, you know, you were brought up in the school of like an artist and like getting to know that artist and how they work, how you lead a band, how you do all these things. And nowadays it's like we bypass that. It's like, oh yeah, I need to make all these TikToks and go viral, and then I'll be able to get the opportunities, which I think is just so backwards. Like,
yeah. My dad quotes somebody that about depth, like depth being more important than width, or what is the word for breadth? There it is, not width. Yeah. Like the goal, maybe the goal is that it's like a lot of breadth and a lot of depth, but maybe that depth is more important in terms of this idea of like happiness, fulfillment, healthfulness in the brain, like feeling good about things. I don't know.
I think just like a lot of the times it's like whatever like the big like rich corporation is telling you should do, like maybe that's what's best for them and not maybe that's what's best for you. There's a lot of things, there's a lot to say here. I actually kind of want to do a whole series about like musicians and like how we deal with social media and like the internet that we're in, and like just kind of like explore a lot of these questions, because I think there's just like a lot to suss out, and I do think there's a lot of opinions, and I do think that there are like positive arguments for like why people should be active in social media spaces or whatever that is, but
there's good for sure.
But to me, I'm feeling we were coming from a place a few years ago where it's like you have to have a strong this, you have to, and I think like much more now it's like a nuanced conversation from a lot of different voices where they're like, yeah, I don't know, I think it's complicated, it's like kind of more of that it's kind of more of that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So more soon on that. Let's talk about new music this week.
Yeah.
I'll kick it off. We had Jeff Parker, who's a guitar player who I don't know too much of. I know a little bit of this group Tortoise that he plays with, but there's a new live album called Mondays at the Enfield Tennis Academy. It's like this supposed to be this like little club in LA, but it's kind of jam bandy, kind of not necessarily free. I think it's like more kind of in than that, but it's only on Bandcamp, I think. Like I looked for it on streaming stuff. I don't think it's on there, but it's on Bandcamp, and I think it's like 4 or 5 like full sets is like what this album is basically of them playing, and it's quite cool and quite good, and it's gotten really good reviews. So yeah, this website Aquarium Drunkard, which I don't know of, but they write a lot. They do a lot of like reviews and interviews of like this kind of music. That's kind of like a little bit more jam bandy stuff. And they're totally reparable. I looked them up, but they said it's an uncommonly intimate live recording. The players seem to be extremely at ease in this small club setting. And I listened to it a little bit this week. I thought it was really cool. And I don't know much about him, but then I went back and listened to, he has some really highly regarded and very cool like solo guitar albums. The most recent one I think was out in 2019. So those are cool kind of things to check out if you're into guitar playing. And then the next one was I'm terrified of saying this name out loud. What's AOIFE? How do you say that?
Irish.
No thoughts.
Oif.
It looks like Awif or something.
No.
Should I just like look this up?
Yeah, probably.
AOIFE.
Before we say
pronunciation. It says Aoife.
Aoife.
See?
Glad.
Goodness gracious.
Aoife. That's what Google is telling me right now. I don't know.
Hey Google.
Well, it's a myth. This says it's a mythological character. But anyways, Aoife is what Aoife Nessa Frances, an Irish singer-songwriter. This is her second album called Protector. It came out this week. Pitchfork gave it a 7.5, saying inspired by the rugged yet serene beauty of Ireland's west coast, the singer-songwriter's tranquil, psychic folk explores communion with nature, family, and ourselves. This could not be more up my alley. This is like totally my this is totally my vibe. I want to go to Ireland and I just want to like sit and like stare at the ocean. So yeah, I listened to this a little bit over the weekend. I think it's very cool. And like worth checking out. So 2 recommendations of things that I don't really know a lot about, but I think are cool and they're new. So something to check out. And then we had something from WizKid.
Yeah. Afrobeat is huge now. Everyone's doing Afrobeat. But this guy, WizKid, he's a Nigerian Afrobeat star. He released his 5th studio album, More Love, Less Ego. Whoa.
Wow.
Love that. On
we have so
November
much
11th.
synergy. There's so much synergy on this pod tonight.
So
it's like, oh
much.
yeah, that leads into the next thing.
Literally.
Released it on 11/11, which I think is a very lucky day. I've been saying that a lot, 11/11.
And it was 22 too. Does that matter?
I don't know.
That's math.
I think it's cool. I think it's cool when it's like,
11,
Yeah.
22.
11
Okay.
plus 11
you know what that
makes
is.
2022.
And from this website, in Me, they said the 13-track record sees the 32-year-old, so young, continue to exhibit his melodic genre blending prowess. It's refreshing to see a trailblazer like Wizkid adapt his sound to pay homage to the current pop sounds of the African continent. Love that. So they're technically saying he's not a sellout. I like that.
Alex is like, let me just translate this for you.
He didn't fall victim to the American pop ways.
Well, I also like that you said so young, because yes, I think people are they're like, you're not 17 and plastered all over everything famous ever. Failure. Like, I just think lifelong pursuits are admirable. That's what I want to be about.
And it's his fifth. So as a 32-year-old, that's like, he's been doing it for a while. And I think he just started getting into like the American scene, like maybe last year, when him and this other Afrobeat artist, Tim's, I think they had like a nice song together that also went TikTok viral, unfortunately.
Aha.
Why unfortunately? Good for them.
Yeah, good
Speaking
for
of people that have
them.
been doing it for a while, have you seen this new Lindsay Lohan Christmas movie?
We've been trying.
Stop, I watched it.
Wait, no.
I know, sorry. I'm sorry. We'll watch it again. No, we will.
It is
I'm sorry.
So bad, but it's like funny and weird.
So good.
You like it?
No, listen, there's things that are so bad they're good.
I thought, is it better or worse than the new Hocus Pocus 2? Was it better or worse than that? To me, it gave me totally similar energies, except it wasn't like it wasn't
if they had
a surprise musical or something.
If they had sung, it would have been worse.
Well, she does actually sing in it, and she's so awkward. She's like, they're like singing. She's like, and like her boyfriend or whoever is like, oh my God, you suck.
Yeah.
She's like,
Alex, I'm sorry, but
this is like a whole plot point.
Yes, we'll watch it.
Do you forgive me? It is,
of course.
I think it's funny that it's a whole plot point. I just love the movies like that because I
like
can
Hallmark?
sit in my bed. Yes. And they're
Hallmark,
so
yeah.
bad.
Yeah, they're so bad.
And you're just like, that's not
Christmas
real
Prince.
life.
Christmas
Yes.
Prince 4. Christmas
I
Prince.
think that's like probably my guilty
Goes
pleasure.
to
Like if I had to
space.
pick one, goes to
Yeah.
space.
Christmas
They're always-
Prince. on
They're always
Mars.
right on the edge of being like a little like space cadet, where it's like, where is this going? Like, are
Oh,
you
brother.
okay?
Yeah. Is everyone okay?
Like,
Definitely
who was the
Lindsay
director? A
Lohan-
5-year-old?
Lohan is like is everyone think she's okay? Also, I think
know.
there was, so we did like a slow motion check on this. I think she has a stunt double at the end of the movie to like kiss the guy. I don't
Okay,
think
it
that's
didn't look like her at all, did it?
I don't think that's her kissing him. I think that's like a stunt double, which is like so random.
So bizarre.
She has stunt doubles at like weird times in this movie. There's like one time where she just kind of like falls in the snow and it's like obviously a stunt double. And then it's just like, and she's like, I'm in the snow. And I was like, you couldn't do that. Like, or like, I don't know. It's just like, it's like hilarious. Like, but then I think like the last kiss is like a stunt double because they do like a hard cut and it's
it
the
didn't
same
look like
angle.
her.
They don't like change the
Spoiler
angle.
alerts. Spoiler alerts.
Sorry, in the romantic Christmas
Kelly's like-
movie, they kiss. This is like, I'll do like
We'll
a
do a
thing at the beginning of this
marathon.
episode, and I'll be like, if you are
Disclaimer.
interested at all in
Yeah.
having no spoilers for the Lindsay Lohan Christmas movie, skip from the 115 minutes to 117 minutes. Everyone's yelling at me. Okay, that's not our extra credit though this week. Our extra credit was making stuff happen. There's a Steve Jobs quote that is, most people never pick up
They're
the phone
billionaire.
and call, and that's what separates sometimes the people who do things from the people who just dream about them.
Oh.
So this is me just like dropping a
Interesting.
bomb at the end of the thing. I don't know if you guys are you Steve Jobs fans at all, or do you know anything about him? Or that seems like a no.
Not
So-
really. Not particularly, but I'm down. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, okay.
Screaming.
He was like a hero of mine, and then I kind of like learned a little bit more about him, and then I see him much more as like the kind of complicated flaw human that I think is probably slightly closer to the truth than the genius that invented Apple computers and the iPhone and all that kind of stuff. But I think he did do a lot of great stuff, and smart stuff. But I also think he was kind of complicated. But This was what I
like the
this week.
quote though. I like
that's
it.
a good quote.
I think it's like pretty real too. That something I'm working on. both like calling people and being intentional. Like I know that's not what he's talking about, but like being very intentional about like just what's up in my life, like what's happening. Yeah. But then also like in terms of connection, but then also in terms of like making stuff happen. It's like that's it right there.
Yeah. It is hard. And it is true that I think a vast majority of people out in the world like just will not do the thing. Like I think like that, like they're like, oh yeah, I want to do this. That would be cool to do that someday. And they just never do. Like they never pull the lever, like whatever that is. And I've been thinking about this a lot too, like particularly with my students. Like it would just make my life so much better if most of my students were a little bit more consistent with like what they do, it just, and I feel this too, just in my life. Like, it's just like, it is hard. Like you're trying to collaborate with someone, you're working a thing out, and then they just kind of like, I've had this like working on recording projects and stuff where it's just kind of like, man, if you could just throw me a bone here, like if you could just like call me back, or like if you could just like look at this thing I sent you, like that would just make like I'm already kind of like completely out on a limb here, like just like trying to do this thing when it's hard to do a thing, and but yeah, I think like that's how, at least for me in my life, it's kind of like, hey, who are the people that call you back? Who are the people that like will do the thing they say they're going to do, and all that kind of stuff. I think this is like the number one thing in my life. This is like where I will get the most upset. I'm sorry that this is like a therapy session all of a sudden right here.
I love it. I was about to say that earlier about me, so it's fine.
But okay. But like this idea of like saying you're going to do something and then not doing it, like if that happens, even with like the dumbest stuff, even if my fiance is like, we're going to have tacos tonight. And then it's like, we don't have tacos. We have something else. I'm like, maybe this is just my inability to be flexible or something with life. But it's just kind of like, if someone says like, oh yeah, we're going to do this on Friday. And then it's like, oh, I don't really think, blah, 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 and I'm just like, like, it's one thing to say like, oh, could we do it a different day? Right. That's a totally different thing. Like, it's just different to be like, and then just not do it. Like I was teasing this student because like, we've been like working on a thing for a while, and I keep being like, you need to practice this. And then like after a couple of weeks, he was like, okay, I'm going to do that for next week for sure. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to write it in your lesson notes that you guarantee that you're going to do this. So I was like, guaranteed he's going to learn this song. And then it came back the next week, and he hadn't done it. And he was like, I'm so sorry. I know I promised it. And I was like, no, you didn't just promise it. You guaranteed it. And I was like, it is here in the thing. And it was like, and then the next week he did it finally, but it was like,
pulling tooth and nail.
I don't know where I'm going with this, but it is hard. It's hard to get people to do stuff they say they're going to do.
I felt like, come to class on time. Don't be an hour and 10 minutes late to class.
Maybe some of that is getting rid of there's so much trying to distract us from like things that are important. That I think like really, really, really being honest with yourself about what's important to you.
Yeah.
And then being transparent about it that's a thing.
This is true.
Not on the side of like not doing it, I guess. You know what I mean?
You make a good point for not doing stuff, which I'm also kind of a fan of. Like, I like also not doing stuff. It's Thanksgiving weekend break Thanksgiving week break next week. I'm so excited to not do stuff. I'm so excited to not pick up the phone and try to get people to do stuff.
No, but I think people would be better at picking up the phone if they figured out
what was important to them.
I totally hear that.
I took over your your spotlight. Gumbo.
No.
Amy, would you like to maybe pick up the phone and read us out for this this episode?
My pet peeve is that when people do this, no, it will always be
or when they don't talk into the microphone on a podcast.
Me exposed.
So same.
No, when people hold their hands flat instead of like an old phone. Let's always keep an old
Landline.
phone.
You should call me on my cell phone.
don't
But
you-
even Drake does the.
even Drake, our hero.
I love Honest
Well,
Charlie.
don't you hold the phone like that? Hold the phone like that, right?
That's
Who holds
actually
a f-
fair.
Who holds
No,
a
no,
phone
no,
like
no.
that?
This is imitating an iPhone. The flat hand is imitating an iPhone, but you are the phone. Your hand is the phone. See what I'm saying?
Oh, so like
Charlie
this is
is
supposed to be like a
confused.
phone?
This is the
like
iPhone.
a smartphone?
Yeah. I don't know. Whatever. Anyways,
That's
These are
upsetting
things-
to me.
why do
I've
I
never
care?
seen any of it.
but I do. No, like kids at camp would do that. Like little kids would be like, "Oh, I'm like, no,
I'm on the phone."
no."
And you're
It's
like, "What?"
Fully, yeah. Okay.
Our age is showing.
Anyways, thank you for listening, everyone, and supporting Foray Music, where I always speak into my mic. Just kidding. Remember to like and subscribe. And just a note that if you leave us a review, it helps us a lot. And we will highlight you. We will tell the world what you said about us. Hopefully on next week's show. So where are you guys at? For more, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Foray Music. Subscribe to our newsletter at foraymusic.substack.com and check out our website at foraymusic.com. Buy
Alex,
our merch.
buy our merch? What's our quote for this week, Alex?
Fit as a fiddle. John Legend.
From the person who is fit as a fiddle. Okay, thanks for sticking around for all of that nonsense. We think you're super. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone. I think my genuine laugh, maybe, but I like forcing the diaphragm, like going.
That's so good.